So if we open up to, where the heck is day 4? There we go. So day 4, we're doing some practice with the conditionals, right? And did everybody get the yellow sheet? I feel like I've got a couple people here that maybe I haven't seen in a few days. Where did my extra yellow sheets go? Did I lose stuff? Did somebody recycle them on me? Oh, nope, they're just way over here. Okay. Anybody else that didn't get this earlier on? Yeah. Okay. So on the yellow sheet, you guys, if you have it, you know that it's just the truth tables for the 3 things that we've learned at this point. So the first one was the and, second one is the or, last one is our if then. And so we have all of this in the notes. So if it helps, you can take and you can copy it in there. I know some of you guys already did this the last time that we were together, right? But part of the reason I want to point this out is because, first of all, you're being asked to fill in that truth table to start. So we want to remember that every truth table starts the same way. True, true, then true, false, false, true, and then false, false, right? And then specifically for this one, when it's an if, then, right? Every case is true except for one. Anybody remember what the one case is that comes out false? Not the false false, although I don't blame you, because for and or, it's the double false. That's okay. Which one would it be, Bri? Yeah, if it starts true. So if I promise you something and then I break the promise and I don't come through, that is going to be my false case. Everything else is true. So I'm going to tell you right now, we are going to have a little teeny tiny mini quiz the next time I see you guys. So that's going to be on Tuesday for this class. And all the mini quiz is going to be is this right here. I might literally even just copy this sheet and be like, all right, here, put your name on it, fill it out for me, and show me that you know the truth tables. The reason we're going to do that separate from the test is that every once in a while, somebody makes a mistake, all right? So I want to see that, first of all, do you know them? But I don't want it to hold you back when the test comes, because let's say you make a mistake and you screw up this part. You're then going to mess up every question based on that, and I don't want that to happen on the test. So we're going to do a little separate mini quiz for all 3 of the truth tables on Tuesday. And then on Friday of next week, when we take the actual test, they will be given to you filled in. Just because the key is I want you to be able to know how to use them and how to read the truth table. But I don't want one little mistake to then make a third of your test incorrect, because that's essentially what could end up happening. Okay. So with that being said, we got to study for a little baby quiz, and then we'll move from there. Any questions on that? Okay. That next week, though, that's quarter 2, you guys. Quarter 1 ends today. So here's a chance to start quarter 2 basically with 100, all right, and then work from there, which would be really great. So you just have to know those 3 truth tables for our little mini quiz. Otherwise, let's use it and get moving with it. So the first page has some practice. It's saying, let's let P and Q represent true statements. R and S are false. Evaluate the truth value for each. So I do want to see your work. That's the one and only thing that I probably need to remind people of, because I feel like otherwise you guys are doing a nice job with this. So right underneath the truth value that you're being given, and then I want you to be able to evaluate. So for that one, if it starts true and ends false, that's that broken promise right there. Right? That guy should be false. Okay. So then when you go to the next one, P is true, and then not F. Okay. Tristan, you okay? Yeah? Can you tell me what would not F turn into, that little piece? Yeah, absolutely. All right. And then if we start true and end true, right? Zinda, what do you know about that one? Absolutely. Right. So as long as you guys can fill in, you can make those little fixes. We can then read the chart above to answer anything. Right. So try number 3 and number 4, just to make sure that we're all on the same page with that. And then if you didn't have a chance to fill in your yellow sheet, you can also take that moment to fill that in so that you have it as a little reference. You have it to use to study if need be. Okay. right, so for 3, if we start with false and then we end up at true, Deja, what'd you come out with for the whole value here? Absolutely, good. All right, and then the last little one, let's see, that's true. That little piece is false. So M on the inside, if I start true and I end false, what is that part going to be? Oh, I don't even know. Emily, sorry, I don't know if you actually heard me. I realized I was waiting and I was like, she's not looking at me. That's okay. If you start true and you end false there, what would that inside piece end up as? Okay, true. For this little inside piece? So if I use my little chart, if I start true and I end false, so back up here, if I start true and I end up false, that little part would be false. Is that okay? All right. And then because we have the little knot in front, now it would flip and end up true. Okay. All right. Any questions on that part? Cool. The bottom ones then. Let's do a little practice filling in these statements. So the statements we have, it is fall, the leaves are changing color, which pretty much, I feel like most of them have pretty much changed color and are starting to drop, which makes me sad. I love fall, but it's okay. All right. So if we get the original statement, remember you're starting with if. So if the first part, it is fall, then, and then we can do that second part. The leaves are changing color. Right. For these, it's a good idea. Remind yourself of those little hints. So the I and the N. Simon, do you remember what we said the I and the N would represent as our hint here? Do you have it, if you look back maybe on the page before? Let's see, I'll get your notes out. What's your good notes here? Let's see, back here. So I and N. Yep, exactly. So I and N is going to represent inserts. No, you got it. And so if we take symbolically an insert not, we add a little squiggle in front of each part. And then word-wise, we're going to insert not to this. So if it is not fall, then we can say the leaves are not changing color. Oh, that sentence is a little longer than usual. I'm trying to like squeeze it in down here. Good. All right, so for converse, Lennon, do you remember the little hint for the C and the O? What did that represent? And feel free to look back in your notes if you don't remember. So look up converse, which would be right for ourselves as a hint there. That means change order. You got it. All right. So the if doesn't move. Whoops, let me change it symbolically first. Put the Q first, then the P. So the if and then stay still. We're just going to start with the Q statement first. So we'd start with the leaves changing color. So if the leaves are changing color. Sorry, sometimes I write so quick I leave words out. So my little R is in there. Then, now the first part, it is fall. Good. Right, the last one, contrapositive, biggest word, biggest amount of work here. We're going to do both of these. And so when I say do both, I mean insert not and change the order. So at this point, guys, I don't expect you to have everything memorized, but just make sure that you've got it in your notes. That's the one great thing about having one big packet. You can look back and it's with you. Right? So that means we have the little squiggle Q and then squiggle P, if you will. And so we're going to start with the leaves part and insert the word not. So if the leaves are not changing color, then it is not fall. All right, does anybody have any questions on the front? Because there's only one new thing in today's notes, because that's all practice. Everything we just did right there, we had done in our day 3 notes. So when you flip it over, the one new thing we're going to talk about is a term called logically equivalence. So at the very top of the page, when you flip on over, let's get written down what that actually means. And let me find my notes, because sometimes otherwise I say things in a weird way. All right, so we're going to say when terms are logically equivalent is when two statements always have the same truth value. So when two statements always have the same truth value. And what I really mean by that is that they will always end up either both true or they'll end up, both false. And so that's the equivalent part of it. When you think of equivalent, we think equal, right? So their truth values are always equal. And now what you have here, we have a big old truth table. We haven't really done one of these before. So I don't want you to get overwhelmed with it. I want you to look at the first 2 columns. The first 2 columns are just plain old P and Q. That's how we start every truth table. So I want you to set up the first 2 columns the same way we always do. The 4 combos, true, true, true and then false, false and then true, and then false and then false. Okay. We got some extra pens up here. I'm going to use them just to kind of cover some things up. Because the next column we have is not Q. So I'm going to cover up the P column for the moment. And I want you to look and say, all right, if the Q column reads as true, false, what happens, you guys, when you put the little squiggle in front? What does that do to the truth value of the statement? If it's true, what happens when you put the little squiggle in front? What does it do? Mercedes, what do you know? Yeah, absolutely. So like when this one's true, then not Q would be false, right? Whereas in the second row, if it's a false right now, over here, it should switch then to true. So you're going to have the exact opposite column right here. So if this is true, this would be false. That was false. This will switch to true. So nothing crazy. We just switched those truth values. All right. The next column is asking us to do not P. I'm going to cover up the Q columns then because I don't want to get distracted by those. So I'm very high tech up here, just using my pens to cover things up. So when you look at the P column and it goes true, true, false, false, guys, how would the not P column then read from top to bottom? What would that look like? What do you think? Tristan, could you tell me that one? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you, sir. All right. So we're just flipping those signs. Okay. Now we're down to where we're actually putting things together. So this first one is just if P then Q, is that's like the basic truth table that we know using just the P and Q column. So here's a chance to just practice it again. So if this is our plain old if then, you guys know this. What's the one case that comes out false? Ms. Jacques, would you be able to tell me what's the one case for an if then that comes out false? You got it. It's that second one. So this one would be false. Everything else is true. So double true works, false then true works, and double false works. Okay. So keep that in mind. When you go to do this last column, it's still an if then, but it starts with not Q and it ends with not P. So I'm going to cover up everything except for the not Q and the not P columns. Oh, I'm running out of pens, but I think I can cover this guy up, hopefully. There we go. All right. So starting here, go to here. Think about the rules that you know. Try to hold that in place. If it starts false and ends false, it's fine. When it starts true and ends false, that's that broken promise right there. That one's going to be false. Everything else should be good. Starting false and ending true, that's cool. Starting true, ending true, that one's good. Right? So after filling out all of this stuff, what I want to focus on is look at those last 2 columns. If I look at those last 2 columns, what do you guys notice from top to bottom about them? They're exactly the same, right? True, false, true, 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 false, true, true. So when the fact that these guys come out the same, that's an example of those statements being logically equivalent. So that no matter what, they came out the same all the way across the board. So when it says what two compound sentences are logically equivalent, well, the if P then Q, this is the original conditional. And then you had this one, which was not Q, then not P. My question for you, is that the inverse, the converse, or the contrapositive of that one? Take a look. So the original starts with P, ends with Q. This one starts with not Q, ends with not P. Would that be the inverse, converse, or contrapositive? What do you think? Emily, can you see it? Yeah, they're switched and negated. That's the contrapositive. So this is the contrapositive, right, of the original. So when it says which two compound ones are always logically equivalent, it will be the original one and the contrapositive. So basically, in the future, when you see a question that says, which statement is logically equivalent to whatever, you're always looking for the contrapositive. That's going to be the key here. That's what I want you to take away from this, okay? So this next one, take a look at what it asks. It says, here's a statement. Tell me what's the converse, the inverse, contrapositive, but then it asks you, which of the three is logically equivalent without even writing them? I should be able to say, hey, I know it's going to be this one. Let's go look and see what the heck the sentences even read as, but it should be that one regardless, all right? So what I'd like you guys to do, take a second here and see if you can write each of these. So this is the original, that if I study, then I get good grades. Hopefully that's a true statement. I want you to practice writing what's the converse, the inverse, and then the contrapositive. Little reminder, always start with the if, and then the then's going over here. Those don't move places. All right. So I'm going to give you a minute to give it a try there. If you feel like you're stuck, raise your hand. Call me on over or call Mrs. Fish on over and we'll help you out. You owe me a full assignment or something for the whole three.
It was the whole thing.
That's your funny. That's it. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah, if you have lots of questions. Actually, let me grab my notebook so I can write it down. Hey, Fancy. Do you need somebody? Who? No. Which meeting? Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Is that what you got? No, it's okay. Good. I'll write them all down and then I'll go back and I'll double check. Okay, so that's back to the
Yeah.
okay, so you have, let's see, so you got okay, and then yeah, you got it. Okay. So for these ones, I would just want to see more work that we got for. Okay. And then let's see that. That's the work I want to see there. And then do we do all the way through the back 8? I'm doing a half 8. Okay. That's better than one. All right, I will make sure to go and take a look and then upgrade some things. Okay. Thanks, Susan. All right, let's try to quick run through these. So converse, we are changing the order here. Let's see, Caleb, do you feel comfortable trying this one? Perfect. So if I get good grades, then I studied. And I love the way that he changed it to studied versus then I studied, just because it makes more sense, in the context kind of. All right. But it would not be wrong if left it as study. For inverse, let's see, who haven't I heard from today a lot? Jose, you want to try it? I know you're working on some other stuff back there. Can you tell me at least what is inverse? What's the hint for inverse? Perfect. All right. So if we take this statement and we insert not, we should then have if I do not study, and then I do not get good grades. Awesome. Not awesome that you wouldn't get good grades, but correct statement there. All right, last part, contrapositive. We switch this around and we negate the whole thing. Mercedes, would you give it a try for this one? Perfect. So if I do not get good grades, then I did not study. And I love the way that you phrased that. Perfect. Cool. All right. Guys, there's only a few more I wanted to do with you, and then I'm going to let you actually move on to some homework. So down at the bottom, the last two here, again, here's that logically equivalent. So it says write a sentence logically equivalent to this. This one says write a sentence logically equivalent. So that is code for I want you to write the contrapositive. Now, the first one, to me, is fairly straightforward. The second one is a little bit trickier. Right? So same directions for both, but I want you guys to try it without me bugging you first. Then we'll go over it. Right? So if you're looking at your sentence, just remember if and then don't move. So if you need to, place those in the sentence so that you don't change them. It's just the stuff afterwards that then gets kind of shifted around and arranged. Right? Monty, how you doing back there? Good. Going back and doing some stuff. Thank you. Good. Good. Guys, it's awesome. See, this is how you make use of this time. Outside. Same time doing this. Oh, I'm sorry. Jump up and frighten you, right? Will be doing everything. Yeah. I mean, it'll make more sense if you go back and watch this stuff from the beginning, but you'll catch up. With that being said, without further ado, how's it go? That's perfect. And then that one tends to mess with people, so that's perfect. Good. Really good. All right, so for 2, if we're looking at number 2 here, Bree, do you feel comfortable trying this one out?
Yeah.
Go for it.
If it is not hot out, then it's not July.
Perfect. So if it is not hot out, then it is not July. Awesome. All right. The very last one. That's the one I said that sometimes is a little tricky. Anybody willing to try that one out? The last one's Cinda, go for it.
If school is in session, then it is not session.
Perfect. So if school is in session, then it is not Saturday. You got it. And so for this part, could we have inserted another not? Sure, it just reads really weird. So instead of saying if school is not in session, then they got it absolutely right. Those kind of cancel out, and we just say school is in session. And the idea with these sentences, you guys, is that this is equivalent to saying that. So if it's Saturday, then school's not in session. And if school's in session, then it can't be Saturday. It's just kind of working it backwards there. Okay. The last page of the note packet for day 4 is actually just practice. We are going to skip this. If you are looking for extra practice, feel free, but you do not have to do this. What I would want you to do is we've got about 8 or 9-ish minutes left of the period, is in your homework packet. The homework, it's not that it's super different. It just, the first couple questions look a little bit different. So I just wanted to chat with you about them. And so day 4 is the last page of the homework packet because everything else, all the reviews beyond that are in the packet themselves, like the notes packet. But this is the day 4 homework. So part 1 has 6 questions, and then over here you're matching up. So this is a lot of vocabulary. We got the hypothesis, converse, conclusion, if then, inverse. This one sounds slightly weird, like negating, exchanging, but if you can at least eliminate all the other options. So you might need to go back and dig in your notes to make sure you know which thing references like the hypothesis and the conclusion and so on, right? And then for this next part, then you're writing your own sentences. If you can't quite squeeze them in there, you can find another space to write it down. Otherwise, down at the bottom, I'm thinking you should have enough space to be able to write down each of the statements that they're asking for. All right, and then it does go on over to the back. On that back page, here's more of that practice, and that's why I feel okay skipping the last page of the notes because you're going to see all that practice right here anyways. Right? Any questions? Okay, so my last little reminder, just don't forget that the next time I see you, you are going to have that little mini quiz. It should literally take us all of like 2-3 minutes in class. You're just going to fill in, show me that you got it, and then on the test, you'll have those provided for you. With all of that being said,